This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Pei Dalid, and we began the new parak in the previous year, the ninth parak, Kol Karbanos, and we just read the Mishnah and we stopped right before the Gemara. So we're just going to reread the Mishnah very quickly in order as a little bit of a hakdama to get involved in the Gemara. So here we go. Says the Heilige Mishnah once again, Kol Karbanos Atzivar Yachid. Any karbanos of a tzibur yachid bam in haaretz min chutz laaretz come. The grain could come. The source of the grain chutz laaretz or Eretz Yisrael. Min hachadash min hayashin chutz two karbanos. Min ha'omer shtei alechem sheinam bayin ella min hachadash umin haaretz. V'kul einam bayin ella min hamuvchar. And all of them only come from a muvchar, choicest produce, geshmaka wheat, as we will discuss. B'siyata dishmaya. What is that? So the Mishnah gives us a little bit. Machlis v'zitzcha alpha l'soilis. Machlis and zitzcha are the best. Shniya, secondly, is Lam Afarayim Babika. The Bika, the valley of Afarayim. Kol haratzah yiksheirais. It's kosher from everyone, but they would bring from here. Says the Gemara. Masnisan delogi aitano de tani went to the brayso. Oimer abba min hayashan kosher. Oimer that comes from yashan, from the old crop, is kosher. Shtei lechem abayis min hayashan ksheris. Elo shachiser mitzvah. So says the Gemara. Our Mishnah is clearly not like that, because our Mishnah said what? Chutz min ha'omer shtei alechem. So now the Gemara continues and explains the Mekar for this din in the Brisa. Oimer dechsev takrav minchas bikurecha v'afilu min aliyah, which we can learn out to mean even from the crop that is stored in aliyah, in your attic. Shtei alechem, how do we know that? It's going to be kosher min hayashan dechsev mi moshvaisechem taviu, from your dwelling place you should bring, which teach us v'lo min hachutz laaretz mi moshvaisechem. But once you're in moshvaisechem, filu min aliyah. Ask the Gemara, but we already used this pasuk to teach us it doesn't come from Eretz Yisrael. So how could it also teach me it's allowed to come from Yashan? Amar kra tavihu. Vafilu min aliyah, it's actual word of tavihu. Says the Gemara, really? But we need this. But we need this to teach us anything you bring from another place is like this. So the Gemara Nayin Zayin that taught us that from the word of taviu, we learn that just as the shtei alechem, which are chametz, one isarin of flour, so to all karbanos that are chametz, one isarin in flour. So says the Gemara, we already used the word taviu. Responds the Gemara, 6 lines from the bottom. You're right. They came the kra tavi. It could have said tavi, my tavi u shmamina tarti. Says the Gemara, Ivoxiv Reishis, you're bringing me a makar, psukim, that bolster and prove that you're allowed to bring min hayashan. That oimer, that the shtei alechem, if it's brought min hayashan, it's going to be kosher. Which again is at odds with our Mishnah. It's not like our Mishnah. But ask the Gemara, Vaksiv Reishis. But it says Reishis. Doesn't Reishis mean that it has to be from the new crop? So how can you tell me a makar that it can even be miyashan? Says the Gemara, le mitzvah. No, just an extra mitzvah. Yoksiv chadasha. It says it has to be new. Answers the Gemara 4 lines to the bottom. I mean, the Tanya is for the Brisa. Rabbi Nas and Rabbi Akiva Amru Shtei Alechem Habois min Hayashan Ksheiroi Shtei Alechem that come from the old crop are kosher. Umani Mekayim Chadasha. So if Shtei Alechem Kibra from Yashan is kosher, what we do for Chadasha? Shei Chadasha L'chol HaMenachos. It has to be new from all the Menachos. It says the Gemara, you're right, it says Chadasha, but it's not teaching me that Yashan is going to be not good. Okay, so we have a Brisa that argues with our Mishnah. The Brisa's source is its din which we ask kasha on, but ultimately concede that the shtei lechem and the omer, according to the Brisa, could be brought from Yashan, according to the Mishnah, not. Says the Gemara, let's go a little bit deeper into this machlokes Brisa and Mishnah. Ad kan lo yel b'chadash. The Brisa and the Mishnah are arguing about chadash, whether shtei lechem and the omer have to be from chadash, or it's kosher even from Yashan. Says the Gemara, but it seems there's no disagreement with regarding this Lavim and Aretz. Everyone agrees, as Tabrashi says, that it has to come from Eretz Yisrael and not Chutz La'aretz. Says the Gemara, Daimer Shtei Lechem me'eretzin, me'chutz la'aretz loi, that the Omer Shtei Lechem have to come from Eretz Yisrael, not Chutz La'aretz. So says the Gemara, Keman, whose opinion is that? So who is the opinion that holds that it has to come from Eretz Yisrael? Says the Gemara, Tanya, it's not like the following Tanya. The Tanya we learned in a Brisa. Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda, Omer, says Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda, Omer b'mei chutz la'aretz. He holds that the Omer is allowed to come from chutz la'aretz. Umani mekayim. So what does he do with the pasuk? Ki savayu el haaretz. He says, "Shonas chayvu b'Omer." That the chiyuv is time bound with coming to Eretz Yisrael. Number one. Number two, v'kasavar. The second thing that this Tana holds, chadash b'chutz la'aretz de'araisa. Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda holds that chadash outside of Eretz Yisrael is a din de'araisa. From there we learn out, kol makom shatem yoishvim, wherever you are dwelling, masha utavayu zeman biyahis, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, raisi kruvei nami makrivon. Since it's the raisi, you're allowed to bring the omer there as well. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda argues with the other Tanaim who say that the omer is only kosher if the wheat comes from Eretz Yisrael, the barley, as the top line said, Avol ba'aretz lo pligi, they all hold it has to be me'eretz. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says no, it can be mechutz la'aretz, and we're seeing over here it's pinned on the shita that we've already had on Tav Samachas Beis, which is chadash b'chutz la'aretz is an iser de'araisa according to Rabbi Yosef Rav Yehuda. Continues the Gemara 10 lines down. First one in line is Tanan. Tanan awesome. We learned in a Mishnah. Shoimrei svichim b'shviyis. Noitlin scharon meichumas alishka. The watchmen of the svichim, the aftergrowths, during Shemitah, and they make sure there's going to be barley available for the Karban Omer. They take their schar from the Chumas Alishka. So Rami Ram Beracham, a frag to Beracham the Rav Chisda. Tanan Shabisicha B'Shvies. Now the schar made Chumas Alishka. That's one brisa. V'reminu, but there's another stira. It says Lachla v'Lisreifa. Zok the Torah that for Shemitah the produce is yours. Lachla. But now Lisreifa, not to burn. Now the kemitz of the Omer is burned on the Mizbeach. So how could it be that the Svichen of Shemitah could be brought as the Karban Omer, that they're going to be burnt? Amar Lei responds, Rav Chisda to Rav Chama, Rachmana Amar Lach, L'Dairei Seichem, for you, for your generations. Incorrect. Rachmana Amar Lecha L'Dairei Seichem, excuse me. The Torah says it is for your Dairais, it is for your generations. And based on what you're saying, you're not going to bring this carbon during Shemitah. Because if you're telling me that all the wheat in Shemitah is only la'achla and alisreifa, being mavatel, the whole mitzvah, says the Gemara, Amar Lei, responds, Mika Mina, Anoti Botel. Did I say it should be cancelled? Lazy Midishtakad, which is probably the kasha that everyone was wondering. Why are we being so violent? Just bring it from barley of last year. I never said not to bring it. I said bring it not from this year's barley. Says the Gemara, Be'ina Carmel. We need fresh kernels. Valeka, and it won't be if it's from last year. Valesi mikarmel dishtak. It says Gemara, I don't understand. Bring from the fresh kernels of last year. Meaning, who told you that caramel, that fresh means this year? Maybe it was fresh when it was harvested. Amar Kra responds to the Gemara, caramel takriv. Beina Carmel b'shas hakrava v'leka, and this is not Carmel b'shas hakrava, and therefore that's the reason why we're going to have to use the new crop, because if not, it would be batul. Says the Gemara Itmar. Let's go a little bit deeper with using the barley from the previous year. Rav Yochanan Amar Carmel Takriv. Says Rav Yochanan fresh kernels. Rav Lezer Aimer Reishis Kitzircha. Reishis Kitzircha. V'loi Soiv Kitzircha. Says Rav Lezer. No, I'll give you a different makar that has to be fresh. It says Reishis, the first, and not Soiv Kitzircha, not the end, which would be the previous years. Frakti Gemara and Rav Yochanan, Moisiv Rabba asks Rabba, Vim Takrim, Minchas Bikurim. Says the Torah, when you offer the mincha of the Bikurim, Pinchas Haimer, Akasim Medaber. Talking about the Minchas Haimer, Meichan Hiba. Where does the Minchas Haimer come from? Min Asayrim. Toimer min Asayrim. Oinella min Achitim. Or maybe it comes from wheat, from chitim, from wheat, like most carbon min Achais. So why are you telling me it's Sayrim? Rav Eliezer Oimer nemer aviv b'Mitzrayim, nemer aviv l'Tayros. We have this Josh aviv b'Mitzrayim. Sayrim afav mermdarsa. Ein ba ella min Asayrim. That's what teaching us. It comes from barley. Rav Kiva Amar, a third Mikar, Matinu Yachid, Shemevi Chavasim and Achitin, or maybe Chavasim and Asairin. Vatzibra, maybe Chavasim and Achitin, or maybe Chavasai min Asairin. It's going to be similar to the Karban Yachid. Davar Acher, Imat Aimer, Menachitin, and therefore, if you're going to tell me it's from Chitin, Lo Matinu Zibra, Shemevi Chavasim and Asairin, it's going to break the equation. Davar Acher, 4 lines to the bottom, another Mikar. Atoimer ba menachitim in atoimer. One more time. Davar acher. Atoimer ba menachitin. Then in she'alechem bikurim. Then the she'alechem will not be bikurim, and that's the reason why the oimer has to be from se'oirim. So frak the Gemara now. Alma, what do we say? Misham bikurim hu. So what do we see? It has to be the New Year's crop. So the oimer as well must be from the first cutting. Tiyofta, so the kasha on Rav Yochanan, says the Gemara, and we leave it as indeed it is a kasha, as the oimer has to be bikurim, as Pasuk in Vayikra base teaches us, and therefore it's going to have to be for the new crop. This seemingly is like Rav Elazar, it says Rishis Ketirchem, not like Rav Yochanan learns it out from Carmel, because it could be fresh and it won't be the first cutting, but we're seeing over here, it has to be the Bikurim, the first cutting. Says the Gemara, Tanan also learned to the Mishnah. Ein meviim Bikurim chutz mishavas haminim. Bikurim comes from the Shivas Haminim. Veloi, and we do not bring Bikurim, mi Tamarim Shebaharim. There's no Bikurim from the date palms in the mountain, as we turn over to Peidalid Amid base. Veloi, not from the date palms in the mountains, and not Veloi mi Peir Sheba Amakim, and not from the crops that are in the valleys. Amar Ula says Ula im hevi like hidesh. If you brought any of this stuff as Bikurim, it's not kadosh. There's no kedusha at all. Frakti Gemara Yosef Rabba v'Kamar la shmeitz Isvei Ravacha barabba l'Rabba. Karban Reishis. By the Shtei Alechem, it says the first Karban, which teaches us Shetei Reishis v'Chol HaMenachos, that it should be the first to all the Menachos. And similarly it says Ba'krivchem mincha chadasha l'Hashem b'shavua yiseichem ein li'ela chadasha shel chitin. Says the Gemara, I have a raya that the Shtei Alechem must be before any carbon mincha from the new crop of wheat. But chadasha min asayrim minayin, that's only chitin. How do you know from sayrim? Tamalemer chadasha chadasha. Meaning chadasha chitin, meaning chadasha sayrim. So that's what we know has to be the first crop of barley. Continues the brayso. Minayin should take them as the bikur. I know it's come before the bikur. In tamalemer chag shavuos tas elecha bikurei k'tir chitim vein liela. Bikuri ksir chitim. Ksir tzoyre minayin. Tam lever chagu kotzir bikuri ma'asecha. Asher tizra basada. Vein liel, this only teaches us. Shet tizra, this only teaches us. She'elecha must be from the bikurim, from the grain that you planted. Alumei aleim, if it grew on its own minayin. Tam leimar basada. Vein liel basada. Minayin the rabbi, shebegag, shebechomer, shebeotzis, shebesvina. How do we know to include the crabs in the roof and the ruin of flower pot on a boat? Tamaloymar bekurei kol asher be'artzam, the first fruits of everything in their land. And we wrap up this brisa, and then we'll be able to see how this circles around to our sugya. Minayin shadei kodemus l'nesachim upeirais ha'ilan. How do I know that she'alechem comes before the nesachim of the wine and the first fruits of the tree? Nemer kan b'kurei ma'asecha v'nemer lalon basvecha es ma'asecha min asadeh malhalon nesachim upeirais hilim. Just like the word ma'asecha is gzera shava. So malhalon, just like over there by Sukkis, the grapes of the nesachim and the fruit are that which you worked on. Afkan nesachim upeirais Ilan, it's going to be the same type of fruits and nisachim of the Ilan. So now, long brisa, half an amid. Now we have a kasha on Ula. Kotani Mia, what do we see? Shebegag, shebechorg, sheba'atzi, shebesfina. In all of these cases, the Shtei Alechem comes before all of those bikurims. So what do we see? So we see that the Shivas Haminim grown in such areas are allowed to be bikurim. So the kasha then is that the dates from the mountains or the grains in the valley can also be bikurim, which is not like Ula. Said on the top of the Amud, Ula said, Mitmar shabarim laber shabamakom amr Ula imhevi loi kidesh. Says the Gemara, you see, not that way. So responds the Gemara, 4 lines from the white lines. Seifa asan lemenachos. The Seifa is talking about karba menachos, is not talking about the bikurim. Mas kivlar avadabarava yachiv zishuan dersev. The pasuk says kol tar beveischa yoichal oisai. Every tar person in your house can eat it. V'menachos. What shaykh is everyone eating it? Not everyone eats the menachos. Only the male koyanim are going to be the ones that are eating it. So says the Gemara, Amram Rasharshi on the first white line, Trey Kroi Ksivi. We have 2 psukim. One pasuk says, L'chayiyah. Uksev, another pasuk says, Kol Tabriizcha Yoichaloisai Hakitzad. Kan Berikurim, the second was about Berikurim, Bekan Bemenachos. Rav Ashi Amar, Kulu Bemenachos, V'Seifa Dekra, Asyan L'Lachmei Taitas. 2 different ways of learning up the psukim. So we conclude today that says the Gemara, what exactly is this machlokes Ula and Rav Acha bar Abba on the top of the Amid about these mountain dates, about the grapes of the grain of the from the valleys, whether it could be bikurim? Says the Gemara, Beplukta Rav Yechon Beplukta Ula is a machlokes Amarayim. Rav Yechon Amar maybe like Kiddush. Rish Lakish Amar maybe Kiddush. Why maybe Kiddush? Nase kechadlush b'kedashim. Why? Because it makes it like a lean animal amongst the karbanos. So Beish Lamareish Lakish says the Gemara Kedamar Taima, as he explained. El Rav Yechon Amai Taima. Amar Rav Elazar Rav Yechon Chazoi b'Chalom. Fascinating. Rav Yechonon, I saw Rav Yechonon in a dream last night. Milsam al Yasamina. And I know I'm going to say something good today about Shitas Rav Yechonon. Amar Kra, Meirashis. V'loi, Kol Rashis. Me'artzcha, v'loi, Kol Artzcha. And that is how Rav Yechonon learned that this bad produce can never be never has received the kedusha of bikurim. Frak the Gemara Reish Lakish Hayatz Chamav. What does Reish Lakish do with this pasuk? Mi bayilech letanya. Rabbi Gamliel by Rabbi Omer Nemer Kan Arz Emal and Arez Malal and Shavach Eretz Avkan Shavach Eretz has to be that which the Shivas Haminim, that which Eretz is praised for. So too over here, and that's going to be the Machlekes Rav Yochanan, verse Reish Lakish, that we have to at least understand Shitas Rav Yochanan. We'll stop over here. We'll continue this discussion the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.